Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Ask the Broncolor Assistant. My name is Blake Griffin. I am the brand manager here in the US for Broncolor, and we have a great webinar planned for you today, all about free masking. We have some great demos that we've got, and we'll be showing those as we go along. And please, as always, if this is your first time, welcome. Thanks for joining us. If you've come back before and you have any questions, or if you're new and you have any questions, please feel free to use that Q&A tab in your window there. Those questions will come straight to us and we'll be able to answer them live on air. And if we're not able to answer them live, we will definitely get you an answer and be able to go from there. Before we get going, please make sure to like, follow, subscribe, Broncolor USA at all of the things. And if you are not yet on our mailing list, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you go to broncolor.us and get on that list. That's how you'll find out what topics we're going to be covering during our webinar series, where we're going to be, and all sorts of great content across the way. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you today Galvin Collins, the Broncolor Assistant. Galvin is a photographer and cinematographer working in Portland, Oregon, and he has spent over 13 years splitting his times as a stills assistant and a first AC. As a stills assistant, he has helped bring photographers' visions to life, and as a first AC, he has helped keep the picture sharp. So without further ado, everyone, Galvin Collins.
Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well today on this Wednesday morning for me. We are going to, Blake, thank you for the great introduction as always. And like he said, please ask any and all questions that come up in your mind. Questions are a great way for us to know what you want to know so we can tell you. And like Blake said, check out all the Broncolor stuff, YouTube. We've been doing a lot of videos there. Pretty fun stuff. All right, let's get right into free masking. What is it? How do we use it? What does it benefit? And today we're going to talk about what it is, how to set it up in the menus, and how do you take that image into Photoshop, and how to utilize what free masking specifically is all about. We're going to be working with Scoro S 1600 joule packs today. We're going to be working with the Pico light, a Pulso G, and a Unilight head, respectively, in their places. I got two soft boxes. I have the 60 by 100 and the 30 by 120 up here with a grid, and we are using an RFS 2.2 transmitter. You can do free masking with the Scoros with the 2.1 transmitter as well. What else will work with free masking? The Siros products will work with free masking as well by using the bronControl app. Unfortunately today, I don't have a Siros here. And since we are using internet and Wi-Fi to present this material to you, I can't really show you at this moment. I have to get some other infrastructure to show you bronControl. There is a dedicated webinar coming soon. And, you can see a lot of the videos that are already out there about the bronControl app, but we will do something on that eventually. bronControl app, there's a nice little diagram of it, a very handy tool, and can really get you, especially if you're a one-person wonder or an assistant trying to do stuff, you can work with those lights in a very independent way. All right, Scoro packs. They're available in the Scoro S and the Scoro E. We won't talk about the E because I don't believe the Scoro E's can do free masking. I might be corrected in the comments, but for any information about the Scoros, we've did a webinar all about the menus and everything Scoro related. You can find that on the YouTube, excuse me, YouTube as well. Free masking, what is it? Lots of information, a little bit out there, but some of it's a little confusing. So the manual qualifies free masking as by asynchronous flashing with the two power packs, an object can be isolated. Sounds a little bit vague. So essentially, by creating two different lighting scenarios, one being the lighting for your subject and one being a lighting that develops a silhouette of your product, you can use those two images captured in Photoshop. So what is the deliverable? You'll get two images. One is your product photography, beautiful, ready to go product photography, and you'll get a silhouette of that product that you can then take in and use that to cut out and create an alpha channel mask so that you can create comps and do knockouts. I also like to bring up that this is also known as front light backlight. I had one of my first jobs was working in stop motion animation, and they use this technique all the time, shooting the onstage light and then killing all your front lights and then having a backlight that creates a silhouette. It allows you to create a mask for every single frame of stop motion animation. So a compositor doesn't have to go in, and you also don't have to mess with lighting specifically for a green screen or all the color cast or issues that can come from that. So it's a common tool that Broncolor has taken, and it's specifically really, really good for doing rapid product photography. If you have a lot of photography, a lot of products to get through in a day, and as we know, kind of quantity ends up being money. So keeping quality and taking pictures, and a lot of them can help out, especially if you're doing the comping or you're passing it off, handing them an alpha channel. Alpha mask is very, very handy. So if we jump to our next slide here, you're going to see, as I talked about, your product photography lit to look nice and ready to go. And then on the right, we're going to shoot a photograph that'll be used as the alpha channel, which is the silhouette. And methodology. I really like to think about this as two different lighting scenarios. So we're doing a very simple representation of it, 2 lights for one scenario, but you're going to have each scenario on a different Scoro pack here. One pack will be dedicated to just the lighting for our subject. And today I've done just a simple 2-light setup. The other pack is going to be our lighting for our back silhouette. And there's a lot of ways that we can achieve this same goal. We've done it very simply with a softbox. But I'm going to pop up here just to kind of show the idea of 2 independent lighting scenarios on my lead pack here, which I'm calling scenario 1, product light. I've got my Pulso with the 30x120 and a grid right here, and then my Pico with the P70 and a medium grid. That's my light for the product. And then on this one, I've got my scenario 2 backlight, and I've got my uni light with the 60x100 softbox on it. Using tape and markers is great. Sharpies is a great way to mark off and let you be able to keep track of what you got going on in your packs. As an assistant, it's pretty handy, especially when you are in that situation where your assistant or your photographer asks you to go, like let's take the power up on our parabolic reflector by 1 stop. If you've done that extra legwork, you've taped, sharpied, and labeled it, you're able to really quickly find which light that is instead of trailing a cable. Sometimes you got head extensions, sometimes you got a lot of stuff plugged in. It's just really easy to track at that point. Okay, so again, 2 scenarios, one being our front light, one being our backlight, set up on each different pack here.
So before we get going too much further, Galvin, Jeffrey in the chat has a question. He says, do you have to have 2 Scoro packs, or can this be done with just one?
You have to have, to take advantage of the 2 sets specifically with the Scoro, you do need 2 Scoros to do free masking with Scoros. You can do free masking with as little as 2 Siros monolights, because you're alternating between units, and it doesn't have innately the ability to say, I'm going to fire channel 1 and 2, and then channel 3 will fire a separate shot. That's not a free masking feature set that's added. So yes, you do have to use 2 Scoro packs to achieve this effect. Using the free mask feature, yeah. Yeah, okay. So moving forward on scenario 1, I've got a slide here with just a little mini lighting diagram so you can top-down view what we got going on here. But I have my Pico light with the P70 reflector, just cast a nice little soft edge light. And then I've got my large 30x120, and I've got a grid on here, casting a nice even light across the front. As you can see from this picture, there is you can see the backdrop, which I'm using the white of another softbox. But since we're shooting this whole thing specifically to crop out the background, those little wrinkles, those things aren't really going to be an issue. In lighting scenario 2, you can see I've just got a softbox back here. I've got the power set so that we've just got a nice bright illumination so that we will get a silhouette shot. I'm going to jump here into capture 1 to show you what it looks like. We're going to power this on. And as per usual with these webinars, there's a good chance that you won't see the strobe flash. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. I did see it there. I did see it there. All right, so I'm going to real quick shut off the channel on my scenario 2, and I'm going to just take a quick picture. Of course, that didn't work real quick. Why didn't you work? Command K, there we go. Oh, and we're...
And if we can actually pop in to see what you're seeing, Galvin, that would be wonderful.
We are going to do that. I'm just going to make sure I'm in focus first, because that would just be embarrassing. All right. Okay, all right, there we are. So in Capture One, you can see when I hit Command K, we just bring in an image that has a nice, you know, I kind of did some fun stuff here. We'll take a picture of just here is just the softbox with the grid, casting some nice even illumination on there. And then we'll switch the channels here, test that, and there we go. And then we're going to fire the Pico light, and then this is a highlight pass. So between the two, we end up with a nice overall, just kind of a basic product shot. And then on the other side of things, we'll jump over here to just the background. And we've got, let's picture in picture. There we go. We got that ability. All right. So now what we're looking at here, we have a silhouette essentially of this. By using a softbox as the background, we're taking advantage of the fact that that softbox has a fairly even illumination from edge to edge. That softbox, you know, we've talked about them in our first webinar, that ricochets light around so that it evens out and homogenizes that light across the front face. So it acts as a really nice background for stuff like this, especially that's small enough that it'll fit in front of it. It's also fun to do portraits in front of softboxes too, I think. But for this use case, it's a great way of getting light coming directly at camera from the background. Now you can also run out a white backdrop, set up one or two softboxes, and then position them in a way that will evenly illuminate your background. That's for if you're doing some larger subjects or anything like that. This is just a great way, and Blake actually reminded me of this technique while we were setting up for this. A great way to get some direct light. So jumping into the picture-in-picture, I've got my levels set so they're pretty much at the 250. At the top of the screen, you'll see the RGB and luminance value across there in Capture One. You know, 230 to 250, fairly even all the way across. And that's just, we're building, it's not blooming. The highlights aren't going around the camera, so I'm not losing detail on this edge, which ends up being pretty important. You'll see there is a little bit of the background light reflecting on these surfaces, and that's actually going to help you out when we get into the comp. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But let's jump back out. Okay, so we have our two different lighting scenarios, and we've got two different power packs. How do we tell them to fire one for one shot and another for another shot? That's where the Freemask comes in. So we're going to jump in here, and we're going to there we go. And here we are at our menu. And right now we've got our Freemask. It's set to off. And this is just in our normal menu right off here's the very top of the menu, Wi-Fi. We can navigate down. It's not always there, only when you've been messing with it previously. All right, we're going to, why is my auxiliary backup off? We're going to turn that on. You should always have auxiliary backup on. That's the memory for the pack. So, all right, select number of units. Let's just go up there first. You don't have to do this. When you go to Freemask, it natively goes to Freemask, which is 2 units, taking advantage of 2 power packs. But we can go there. We'll go jump into select 2 Freemask. 3 is alternate and 4 is alternate. And you can actually use up to 4 different Scoro packs, creating 4 unique lighting scenarios so that each picture you take 1 through 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, will have a different lighting effect. Lots of use cases for that. Lots of interesting things that you can use for it. But you can think of creative ways of taking advantage of that. Today, we're just talking about the Freemask. So we're going to select Freemask. We're going to back out. We're going to go to status and hit select. So right now, status alternate, you've got off, active, and wait. So since this is our first scenario and I want that picture to take first, we're going to go down and we're going to hit active. We're going to go out to quit. And now Freemask active. So that's our first scenario and pack 1. Now on pack 2, we are going to jump over to Freemask. We're going to go select. I'm going to jump up here and just verify that it says 2 Freemask, select. And then we're going to go down to status alternate and we are going to set it to wait. So now we have told this that it's on Freemask and it's on wait. So with a pack that is on active and a pack that's on wait, what we're going to do, I can trigger this here with my remote. You'll see one light fire and then the other one. I don't know if could you see that on there, Blake? Can you see on there the independent packs firing each time?
Yep, we can see the test light there. If everybody sees the real lit up light, it will flash as we are showing there.
Okay, cool. So it is now effectively alternating between scenario 1, scenario 2 from shot to shot. So we can jump into capture 1 here with a little picture-in-picture action. And we can hit our Command K and we'll see now the first image that comes in is our product photography, is our silhouette shot. Product photography and silhouette shot. So the real power of this, though, comes with, say you're photographing shoes or old cameras and you want to get multiple angles. You want to give your client many options for that. We could sit here and we could move this camera, move it, fire 2 shots, move it, fire 2 shots. And these packs are going to alternate so that every shot you're going to get 1 shot product photography, 2nd shot layer mask. And that can be a very powerful tool, especially for e-commerce photography, for anything where you're doing product photography day in, day out. This gives you that ability to light it once and then really just get a lot of options and a lot of modification and take advantage of that Freemask. So is there any questions on getting up to this point? Does anybody have any questions?
Nothing so far, but when they come in, I will definitely pass them that way.
Perfect. All right. So now what? I've got 2 images and I've got everything. I've got 2 images and I'm ready to put them into Photoshop. So we're going to do that. Now, here's my little disclaimer. I am not a retoucher. I am not a professional compositor. I have found what to me is the shortest distance from having these 2 assets to having a layer mask. I know there are some absolute Photoshop wizards out there, folks that do this all the time, and they will probably be able to tell the merits or lack of any process, but it really is how you want to get there. This is just my quick way of doing it. That's my disclaimer for my for doing this. We're going to be using Photoshop Creative Cloud 32.22, which is the most recent. I recommend using a TIFF file in Photoshop. So from Capture One, I would export TIFF files to take into Photoshop. They maintain a lot of the resolution. I don't have to deal with RAW whilst I'm establishing in Photoshop. So let me get over to my...
While we're transitioning here, Galvin, Chad in the chat asked, is there anything we need to do differently with the RFS remote or any of the channels?
No, not at all. The one main tip that I would say is make sure you're not on cell. Cell will be the only thing that could throw this off, because the cell fires when it sees a optical flash, right? So if one pack flashes and the other one isn't supposed to, but it sees cell, it triggers. It might be able to, in Freemask mode, know that it's not supposed to, but it's one of those things in, like, as a working professional, know what you're doing, and you don't need cell on for that, so turn it off. I use the IRRF, and I go in to specifically say that I am using RF instead of IR, so it's not looking for another signal. But the remote actually has nothing to do with this process. So theoretically, you could use any radio trigger that goes to both of these ports. You could take one trigger and split the signal with a splitter to either whatever. Anyway, you could be firing these packs using even non-broncolor triggers, and you can still get Freemask to work. I do find the RFS 2.2 specifically has been, in my experience, very, very robust, and I have not had any problems. I haven't had to look to other solutions. So that's why I go with the 2.2 remote. But the 2.1 absolutely will work, and anything that can fire these, I just try to keep it off of cell when I'm doing any sort of Freemask.
Okay, and Chad has a follow-up question. Both packs need to be on the same channel, right?
Oh, yes. Gosh, wow. I totally forgot about that. Yes, I do set both these packs up to the same studio. My working methodology when I first get a couple of packs is I will factory reset them by holding the reset button for 20 seconds. You'll hear one beep at about 8 to 10, and then you got to wait further, and then you'll hear a secondary beep, and that factory resets. When it does that, that puts you into Studio 1 with all the lamps at 1. That's what I did in this situation, because there's in my home studio, there's probably nobody else using broncolor products in the nearby vicinity, and Studio 1 has always worked for me. But in a situation where you've got multiple people, maybe multiple packs, multiple sets going, you do want the 2 packs that are working together as part of Freemask to be on the same studio. So these are both on studio. Like if I go to my top down, you can see my main one here. Oh, that's probably going to make people sick. Studio 1, lamp 1, or the lamps are 1, 1, 1. So Studio 1, and then on my second one there, I can't really get into the. Okay, but you'll see Studio 1 there. So you do have to have them sunk up. It's not an effect of using the studio identity or address to take care of that.
Okay. And then Jeffrey in the chat asked, do you ever use the bronControl app for this? And yes, we actually talked about that very briefly at the beginning of our webinar here. Unfortunately, due to some limitations with how we have to be connected to the internet to share with you guys today, we don't really have the ability to demo that really well. But at the end of our recording, you will get an email that will have our handout. In that handout, there is a nice link that actually shows in detail that bronControl app, how it works and how to set it up, and how you can get everything set up through that app as well.
Absolutely. Yep. bronControl is a very handy tool, and there's Wi-Fi on these packs. The Siros, you need to use the bronControl app to be able to establish Freemasking. There is another webinar too that I think we could do talking about bronControl and using Siros specifically for Freemask or alternate applications. So yeah, we're going to work on it. All right. Let's jump back into the Photoshop stuff. All right. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to share my screen, and there is a strange effect that seems to take place with laptops going into switchers, that everything shows up a little bit darker and everything a little bit compressed. It drives me a little crazy, but we do have some slides to reference while we're talking about this, and I'd actually have Blake throw to those slides right now. We have you're going to kind of establish your stack of layers, kind of as you can see here. The very top layer, I've got my alpha channel photo, and then I've got the product image as my second layer, and then I've just created a quick backdrop to kind of show the effect on white or on black, or would be very effective. So I did a gradient. So you will do what works for you. All right, and first thing we're going to do, and if you want to, yep, you're on the right slide there. We have a silhouette, and masking works by black information becomes the transparency, and white information is the most opaque. It's a gradient between the two. So to do that, we actually have to reverse this because we don't want the camera to be cut out. We want the background to be cut out. So my first step is I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, and Invert. Alternatively, you can go Command-I to do the same thing. Oh, I was on my wrong layer. See, make sure you got the right layer selected. Your alpha layer has to be selected, and we are going to go to Image, Adjustments, Invert, or Command-I. And there we go. Now we have knocked this to the inverted. Now you can see in this image a little bit, it's very compressed on the monitor, but you can see up here, there's some little details. There's still some stuff that was highlighted, and we're not going to stress about that too much, but at this point, or as it's when it has become a layer mask, you can apply more contrast, or you can adjust your levels to modify this mask. That would be under Image, Adjustment, Levels, or Image Adjustment, Brightness, Contrast. There's a number of tools in here that you could use, whatever you prefer, to dip your blacks or to make the camera be a little bit different, you know, to take care of some of that. But since that highlight area from the background was kind of splashing onto the camera, a little bit of transparency, letting the background through and tinting that color actually gives you a more realistic key. Anyway, getting ahead. So with our alpha layer, we're going to move to our next step here. With the alpha layer, we are going to, making sure we're highlighted on the alpha layer, Option Command 2. And what that's going to do is it's going to select, and you can kind of see there's now a selection box around. What it's doing is taking all that information of the whole thing. It kind of represents with those dots, but the whole thing is copied so that you can go down here to our product image layer, and then we're going to go to the mask, which my screen is so tiny you can probably wave my keyboard down here at the very, very bottom. Yes, and my slide can show it. The mask icon at the very, very bottom. You're going to click on that while you've got product image layer selected, and then it's going to apply that mask, what you've selected using Option Command 2. It's going to apply that to the layer mask. And then once you go to your alpha layer image and you turn that off, you'll see that I have a comp there. So what did we do? We took our alpha layer information, and if you option click your mask, I'm on a Mac, by the way, so option is alt, alt is option. If you click on your mask, you'll see that basically all that information from the alpha layer has been copied into this mask. And you can see there's a few little areas where there's black that is going to be transparent into the background, or, you know, various levels of gray. I'm going to option click back out. And what that ends up doing is it casts a little bit in your highlight areas, a little bit of blue from the background. And I don't see it as the background being revealed. I see as that light from the background casting onto the subject. So it makes those edges a little bit more believable. Like in this area, you're seeing, like if I turn this off, you'll see how there's a little bit of transparency, but your eye doesn't read it as being any transparency to the background. It just reads it as a nice light cast coming in. Anyway, so that's, again, that's the shortest distance in Photoshop to getting from one image to the other. Again, our slide at the end here will show, make sure that you turn that off and turn on, you know, turn your view option for that top layer off. You can actually get rid of it, but a lot of Photoshop folks like to keep their layers and, you know, as options and stuff. So anyway, that's the shortest distance to getting to Freemask, and that's kind of, you know, a very quick and efficient way of showing how to take advantage of Freemasking. Are there any questions?
None have popped back up, but now is a great time. If anybody has any questions with the process, we can definitely answer those. As Galvin mentioned, this free masking is a great tool and technique that you can use, especially on that e-commerce field where you are needing to capture multiple images in a short period of time. And of course, you know, the those among you who are more Photoshop experts might say, well, I mean, I can mask out something manually and do the same technique. But the good news is that something like this makes that a lot quicker, a lot easier, and still gives you a lot of control to dial things in. Lucius in the chat says, nice process. Most certainly. Thank you, sir. That's one of the great things that we've got here. And Jeffrey says, straightforward, great explanation. Thank you, Jeffrey, as well. So cool. If there are not any other questions, we can certainly take this in for a landing here. This one's a little bit shorter than some of our lessons that we've had in the past, but definitely still very important. Next time, we are going to be talking about getting edgy with the edge mask. I cannot state enough how much the edge mask is probably my favorite light shaper across our broncolor lineup. I've got one behind me right now as a fancy backdrop, and we will talk about how to use that with portraits, with products, and everywhere in between. And that should be good for us there. One final question before we end today. Chad in the chat asks, is it possible to do this with just one Scoro pack? Chad, I think we answered that a little bit ago. Unfortunately, you will need either 2 Scoro packs or a Scoro pack and one of the Siros lights using the bronControl app to make this happen.
So you can manually do it. The nice thing about Freemask is it automates the process. When you establish Freemask, one pack fires, then another. So your two independent lighting scenarios are handled. So every time you pull the trigger, every time you push the take a photo button, a different pack fires alternatingly. And that's a handy tool, especially if you're blitzing through a lot of product. Now, theoretically, you could take advantage of the same front light backlight with one Scoro pack by, you know, if you label all your channels. I put my background on channel 3, and then you would, as a photographer, you'd spend your time, like if I took my Unilight and I had this on a 3, I think I had it on 3. So what you could do with this is on your first shot, you would go to your pack and you'd say, I want my product photography. You would take your picture. And then you would say for your second shot, you'd turn off your product photography, and you've just got your backlight. And you got to wait for it. And then you fire your shot. So that's essentially doing the same thing, but it's not an automated process. And the feature set of the Scoro allows you to do this without, you know, once you've established your menu settings, you are in it and you can just keep powering through. If you've got a lot of product to get through, you're not having to go to your pack and make adjustments. You're not having to go and do those things. And that's the nice thing about Freemask. Also, it has the opportunity to use up to 4 lighting scenarios, which, just to get your creative juices flowing. I worked commercially, and I worked with a lot of portraiture, working with a lot of people. With alternate 3 or alternate 4, what we've done is create 4 different portrait lighting scenarios. We had modifiers everywhere. It was just stacked like crazy. And every single photo was a different one of 4 different lights. So our talent was just posing and doing stuff like all over, but we were getting 4 different lighting in that option. And it was a really cool way of doing something. It was kind of unique. It was a lot of fun. So we had 4 Scoro packs, 4 portrait lights, and it ended up being really cool. So that's where this feature becomes very powerful, using multiple packs. But yes, you can do front light, backlight photography, or essentially the same thing, manually by yourself, pushing buttons and doing stuff. But I find that as people are accuracy and memory and all that, I run around cleaning up after myself pretty often. So having a device that does it. That was a long-winded way of saying yes and no.
The good part about it is that, yes, it is possible, but when you are using a technique like freemasking, you're saving time and you're saving movements. And for every second that you save on set, that's additional time that you're not having to worry about it. So,
yep.
Long story short, use freemasking where possible.
Automated tools are very, very important, especially in a photo market where economy is king. You know, being able to provide more services for a reasonable price, or more services for more price is, you know, it's economical for a photographer. So it's just another tool that can help build your speed and help you get through more work in a day.
Absolutely. I've got another question here in the chat, Galvin, that you and your infinite knowledge may be able to answer for us. Can we do this using older Braun packs using the ping pong feature?
Ooh. So the oldest I've used older Bron packs, but I've never taken advantage of a feature like this. So the ping pong feature in an older pack, like, are we talking graphites or are we talking, was it the Pulsar or the Pulso, the original, not the original, but they had, actually those didn't have electronics. So it has to be the graphite that had ping pong. That might have been what in the previous packs they called this feature. I know this feature isn't by any means new. So yes, I'm digging back into my brain here and going back to my graphite days. Yes, the ping pong is essentially the same thing, as you're alternating between two packs, and with the ping pong you establish which is ping and which is pong. I forget the exact menu correlations, but yes, it's essentially the same idea, but they came up with the term Freemask to kind of capture that idea of front light, backlight, and to talk about that as a more usable feature.
What I can probably say, Bill, is send us an email, and I will definitely pass that along to some of our partners in Switzerland and find out if they can give us some additional help on how to make a menu breakdown and make that happen for you.
Yeah, let us know which packs you're working with too, because there's, you know, a beautiful archive of incredibly functional older Braun products. And just let us know which one you're working with.
Okay, so I would say let's say last chance. Any other questions from the chat that we can answer while we are here today? And
I just can't stress enough that using a softbox as the background light is such a really great technique for doing this specifically. And even if you are just doing for white background, I mean, have all three lights on at the same time and photograph. It's a great technique. Blake reminded me of it when we were doing our setup here, and it's fantastic. It's a great tool, a great technique. So put that in your archive of tools for people or product photography.
Well, perfect. So let me see. Looks like we've got thank you from John. Thank you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
And
yeah.
I think that makes a great segue to everybody else. Yes, thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming out. Be sure to join us in about 2 weeks for our Edge Mask, as we mentioned before here. And otherwise, as always, have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thanks, everybody.